Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how, as we get older, the pressure to maintain friendships can sometimes feel more like a burden than a blessing? The truth is that we often spend our time trying to please others, keeping up with social obligations, and feeling drained instead of fulfilled. But what if I told you that you don't need to keep all those friendships to live a happier, more peaceful life after 70? Make no mistake, embracing solitude and letting go of friendships that no longer serve you could unlock a new level of freedom and joy you never thought possible. So stick with me, because what we're about to explore could change the way you think about your social circle for good. If you are not subscribed, I recommend subscribing and activating the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now let's begin. Stay with me until the end of this, because what I'm about to share might just open your eyes in a way that will change how you see your life from now on, especially your later years. Letting go of the pressure to maintain friendships, to live up to social standards, is not just a relief, it is a powerful awakening. You might even find that this shift is the key to embracing your true self and unlocking an even deeper sense of peace as you age. It's time to stop chasing validation from the outside world and start nurturing the one thing that's been waiting patiently for your attention all along: your inner happiness. Now let's dive in. One of the most freeing realizations after 70 is that friendships no longer need to be anchored in the need for social validation. Think back to your younger years. Remember those moments when friendships felt more like transactions than true connections? How many times did you find yourself surrounded by people not because you shared meaningful bonds, but because you needed to fit in or impress someone? Whether it was maintaining an image at work, making sure you were invited to every social event, or worrying about what others thought of you, life often felt like an endless race to prove your worth. The constant pressure of keeping up appearances, of making sure you were seen, accepted, and admired, weighed heavily on your soul. But here's the beauty of being older: none of that matters anymore. You've already lived through the stage where the opinions of others felt like the foundation of your identity. You've spent decades building your legacy, creating a life that's uniquely yours, a life that is far more meaningful than any superficial validation ever could be. And now, at this stage, you are free. You no longer need to impress anyone. You no longer have to fit into anyone's mold. You are enough. You are complete. You no longer need the constant reassurance that others like you, that others approve of your choices, or that you have to follow trends to belong. Your worth comes from within. It's the wisdom of age, the clarity of years lived well, that lets you finally breathe and let go of those artificial bonds. You've witnessed how younger people, often lost in the pursuit of acceptance, worry about their status, about how others see them. They worry about fitting in, whether they're liked, respected, or admired. But as you've walked through the years, you've learned something profound. None of that defines you. It never truly did. You've realized that your self-worth is not defined by the number of friends you have or how often your phone rings. It's defined by your heart, your actions, and your deep connection to your spirit. You can finally say with total certainty that you don't need a crowd around you to feel validated. You are your anchor. Take Harold, for instance. He's in his early 70s, and he spent most of his life climbing the corporate ladder, living surrounded by colleagues and acquaintances who often felt more like mere acquaintances than true friends. Like many of us, Harold spent years building relationships that were based more on convenience than genuine connection. But when he retired, he faced the stark reality that those relationships didn't stand the test of time. They faded, quietly slipping away, and at first Harold found himself reaching out to maintain those ties. But then something changed. He had a revelation. Why should he continue putting energy into friendships that were never founded on deep, meaningful bonds? Why chase after relationships that were driven by nothing more than the need to fit into a corporate world that no longer defined him? Instead of clinging to what was fading, Harold chose to embrace his newfound freedom. He started reconnecting with his passions, reading, painting, hiking, and simply spending time in the quiet joy of solitude. He stopped worrying about what people thought of him and stopped thinking he needed to impress anyone. The relief was palpable. The pressure to maintain shallow connections evaporated, leaving behind the pure joy of living authentically. Harold realized that in freeing himself from the emotional burden of others' expectations, he found a freedom he never imagined possible. No more fake pleasantries, no more worrying about being invited to the next social gathering. For the first time in years, he felt completely at peace with himself, and that was worth far more than any fleeting friendship. This is the key. When you stop seeking validation from others, you free yourself from the exhausting treadmill of proving your worth. No more living to meet someone else's expectations. The only one whose opinion matters now is yours. And when you let go of that need to impress, you suddenly realize how much energy you've wasted on relationships that never really contributed to your happiness. At this stage in life, you've earned the right to choose who and what truly matters. You don't need to justify your choices, your hobbies, or your lifestyle to anyone. You simply need to live for yourself. As time passes, something profound shifts. Peace, once a distant wish, begins to feel more valuable than socializing. In your younger years, the noise and chaos of people around you might have seemed like an essential part of living a fulfilling life. The dinners, the parties, the constant interaction. It all felt like a necessary piece of the puzzle. But as the years unfold, you begin to crave something far deeper. Tranquility, the kind of quiet that comes from knowing you're exactly where you need to be, at peace with who you are, free from the clamor of societal expectations. This kind of peace doesn't just happen. It's something you cultivate by letting go of what no longer serves you. Even the most well-meaning friendships can start to feel like obligations as you age. The calls you have to return, the invitations you feel obligated to accept, and the unspoken expectations that someone will always be there for you. It's not that these relationships are bad, it's just that they can become draining after a while. And when you reach a point where you've already given so much of yourself to others, it's okay to step back. You've earned the right to take a break from the demands of social obligations. You don't owe anyone your time, your energy, or your emotional bandwidth just because they expect it. You're at a point in your life where your time is precious and you get to choose how to spend it. That's not selfish, it's self-care. As you move forward, embrace the freedom that comes with letting go of relationships that no longer bring value to your life. It's not about shutting others out, it's about opening up to the quiet peace within yourself. You no longer need to live in the shadows of other people's judgments. You've earned your wisdom, and now it's time to live your truth, unapologetically and without fear. Your best years are still ahead of you, and they don't require the approval of anyone but yourself. Take Margaret, for instance. At 74, she had a rich social life. Lunches with friends, group calls, holiday gatherings, her calendar was always filled to the brim. For years, it seemed like the ideal life, one that many people would envy. But over time, something began to change. What once felt like joy and connection slowly morphed into something far less fulfilling. The social interactions, once vibrant and exciting, started to feel increasingly draining. The conversations felt repetitive, like old tapes playing over and over again. The same stories, the same complaints, the same gossip. It became monotonous. Margaret began to realize that some friends were only called to vent, while others seemed more interested in talking about others than in having meaningful conversations. What had once been a source of companionship and warmth became a routine that no longer brought her happiness. She had grown weary of it, but felt guilty for even thinking about stepping away. But then one day, Margaret made a powerful decision. She chose to step back, to permit herself to say no to the invitations that no longer excited her. She stopped rushing to respond to every call and text as soon as they came in. She let go of the pressure, the expectations, and the self-imposed obligations that had been weighing her down. Instead, Margaret began to embrace the quiet. And what she discovered was truly transformative. The time she had once spent managing friendships, trying to keep up with everyone else's needs, was now hers to fill as she pleased. She took longer walks, spent time in nature, rediscovered her love for books she had been meaning to read for years, and found herself feeling more alive than ever before. Most importantly, she realized that solitude wasn't loneliness, it was peace. That's the incredible beauty of this stage in life. When you reach a certain age, you realize that you're no longer obligated to fill every minute with activity, to be constantly surrounded by people just for the sake of feeling connected. You've earned the right to enjoy your own company. And in doing so, you discover a profound sense of fulfillment that doesn't rely on external validation or constant socializing. You can finally choose peace over pressure, calm over chaos. You get to make the conscious choice to embrace quiet moments where there are no demands, no expectations. Just you, your thoughts, and the freedom to exist without apologies. So if you ever find yourself feeling guilty for pulling back from social obligations or distancing yourself from people who no longer bring positivity into your life, I want you to remember this. You are not withdrawing from life. You're embracing a new kind of fulfillment. The kind of fulfillment that comes from within, from permitting yourself to nurture your soul instead of constantly catering to the needs of others. And this kind of peace, this profound serenity that comes from honoring your desires and needs, only grows richer with time. Think about it. When you let go of the relationships that no longer serve you, the friendships that drain you, you gain something incredibly valuable. Time. The time that is now yours to fill however you see fit. Time to rediscover passions you've long neglected. Time to explore new things, or simply time to rest. You don't have to be in the thick of a busy social schedule to be fulfilled. You don't need a dozen people around you to feel important. When you let go of the unnecessary distractions, you open the door to a life that is truly yours. A life lived at your own pace. One where your happiness isn't dictated by anyone but yourself. If you're still with me and feeling the impact of these insights, let me know by commenting on number 4 below. If you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to do so and turn on the notification bell. Your support is invaluable to us and helps us continue creating content that informs, inspires, and empowers you. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Now let's continue. True companionship, you see, begins from within. There's a misconception in society that as you age, you need a large circle of friends to feel fulfilled. But the reality is that the most meaningful companionship you can have is the one you cultivate with yourself. Think about it. By the time you reach 70, you've spent decades learning, evolving, and becoming who you are today. You've weathered life's storms, celebrated its victories, and learned from its challenges. Through all of that, you've come to know yourself better than anyone else ever could. And with that knowledge comes an incredible realization. You are enough. You've always been enough. Throughout our lives, we're relentlessly taught to seek companionship outside of ourselves. From an early age, we're told that being social, constantly surrounded by people, is the true key to happiness, and that loneliness is something to be feared, something to avoid at all costs. But here's the thing. There is an undeniable difference between being alone and being lonely. Too many people believe that solitude equates to sadness. But in reality, some of the happiest, most content individuals, especially in their later years, have learned to embrace their solitude, not as a form of isolation, but as an incredible opportunity for self-discovery, reflection, and peace. And there's something deeply beautiful in that, something many people fail to see. Take Eleanor, for example. She is 76 now, and like so many of us, she once believed that she needed to surround herself with people to feel complete. She was always on the go, constantly making plans, checking in on her friends, attending social events, and putting every corner of her life with activity and external noise. But one day she woke up to a startling realization. Despite all her socializing, despite constantly being surrounded by people, she often felt utterly drained instead of uplifted. The social calendar she thought would nourish her was doing the opposite. And that's when she understood something deeply important. Most of the relationships she maintained weren't truly based on connection. They were simply a series of routines, habits, and expectations. She wasn't truly connecting with anyone. Worse still, she found herself constantly adjusting, molding, and shaping herself to fit into conversations, to meet social standards, and to avoid feeling excluded. Then one day, something inside her clicked. She decided to stop. She chose to spend time with herself the way she would with a dear friend, cherishing her own company, doing the things she loved, listening to her thoughts without interruption, and most importantly, enjoying her presence. She began taking long walks, savoring the freedom of not having to call anyone to join her. She went to cafes not to fill the silence with small talk, but to immerse herself in a good book and let the world quietly pass by. She spent peaceful evenings reflecting on her life. Not out of loneliness or fear of being left out, but simply in gratitude for her journey. And here's the beautiful part. She felt lighter. She felt happier. She felt at peace in a way she hadn't in years. That's what so many people fail to understand. that true companionship doesn't come from how many people you have around you, but from how comfortable you are within yourself. When you stop relying on others for entertainment, validation, or shallow conversations, you unlock a kind of freedom that most will never experience. It's the kind of peace that only comes when you realize you no longer need external distractions to fill your time. You begin to see that you are your source of joy, wisdom, and fulfillment, and in that process, you start to attract relationships that are effortless, true, and meaningful. Instead of chasing friendships out of loneliness or desperation, you find that the right people simply gravitate toward you. They respect your space, honor your boundaries, and bring calm rather than chaos. They align with your values, and most importantly, they don't ask you to compromise your peace to fit into their world. This is the kind of friendship that is worth having, not the ones that drain you or make you feel like you are constantly living up to some expectation. So if you've ever worried that letting go of friendships might leave you feeling abandoned or isolated, remember this: the best company you can ever have is already within you. When you stop looking outward and begin to look inward, you'll realize that you were never truly alone in the first place. The company you seek is waiting for you to acknowledge it, patiently resting in the core of your being. Letting go of the toxic friendships that once filled your days just to fill them opens the door to a life that is richer, simpler, and far more fulfilling than anything you could have imagined. Many people hold on to friendships out of sheer habit. They stay connected to individuals who no longer add value to their lives. They attend social events out of obligation, answer calls when they don't feel like talking, and maintain appearances simply because that's what they've always done. But what if you didn't have to do any of that? What if you could permit yourself to let go of friendships that feel like work and instead invest your energy in things and people that truly nourish you, that truly make you feel seen, heard, and loved? Consider James, for example. He's a man in his late 70s who once believed that staying socially active was the secret to aging well. For years, he made an effort to stay in touch with old friends, even when those relationships had grown distant, superficial, and unfulfilling. He felt the weight of social obligations press down on him, thinking that staying busy was the same as staying fulfilled. But one day, as he attended yet another social gathering, something clicked for him. He realized that he wasn't enjoying it. The conversations were empty, the gatherings felt more like a series of rehearsed routines, and deep down he felt more exhausted than ever. The energy he once put into socializing was no longer rewarding, it felt draining. And that's when James had his awakening. He realized that socializing for the sake of socializing was no longer serving him. It wasn't adding value to his life, it was simply filling up space. What he truly needed was a life that was quieter, more authentic, and more aligned with who he had become. When he let go of these hollow friendships, something miraculous happened. He found a new kind of peace and fulfillment, one that wasn't dependent on social validation or maintaining appearances. In my own experience, letting go of the need to please everyone and constantly fill up my time has been the most freeing thing I've ever done. Embracing solitude is not about being lonely. It's about choosing to honor your own needs and giving yourself the gift of space to grow, reflect, and truly connect with who you are. When you stop seeking external validation, you start finding your rhythm, your joy, and that, my friend, is priceless. So he made a profound decision. He stopped forcing himself to maintain friendships that no longer brought him joy or added value to his life. Instead, he began focusing on what truly mattered to him, on the things that nourished his soul, the things that made his heart feel full. He spent more time outdoors, soaking in the beauty of nature, deepened his focus on his health, and allowed himself to explore new passions and interests. There was something wonderfully liberating about not having to meet anyone's expectations anymore. It wasn't about cutting himself off from the world, it was about creating space, giving himself the freedom to live in alignment with his desires and not the pressures of social obligation. And in doing so, something extraordinary happened. He felt lighter, he felt happier, he felt more at peace than he had in years. There's a beautiful transformation that comes when we let go of the unnecessary, when we clear away the clutter of relationships that no longer serve us. It's not a loss, it's a gain of energy, of time, and of mental clarity. Letting go opens the door to more fulfillment than we could have imagined. That's the real beauty of letting go. It's not about closing yourself off from the world or retreating into isolation. It's about creating space for what truly fulfills you. It's about recognizing with a heart full of wisdom that your happiness is not dependent on how many people surround you, but rather on how deeply connected you are to the life you want to lead. It's a profound realization that peace and joy come not from keeping up with everyone around us, but from honoring our journey and being true to who we are. And here's the powerful shift that happens when you embrace this mindset. You stop obsessing over who's in your life, and you start focusing entirely on what brings you joy. It's no longer about measuring your worth by the number of people in your circle, but rather about appreciating the little, seemingly mundane things that make life so rich. You begin to treasure those quiet mornings when the world feels still, and you can just be. You savor the moments spent doing something you love, whether it's a hobby, a walk, or simply being alone with your thoughts. You realize with every passing day that fulfillment doesn't come from checking off a social obligation, but from living life in a way that feels authentic to who you are, from following the rhythms of your heart and choosing the life that speaks to your soul. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment too below to let me know that you are still here with me. So if you've ever felt the weight of maintaining friendships that just don't bring you joy anymore, ask yourself this. Is holding on to this relationship genuinely adding to my happiness, or am I clinging to it simply out of habit, out of a sense of duty? When you finally permit yourself to let go, to choose what nourishes your spirit, you'll find that life becomes lighter, simpler, and so much more fulfilling in ways you never expected. The liberation that comes with this decision is beyond words. It's a deep sense of peace, a relief that fills your heart and mind. If you're still watching this video and you're resonating with these insights, please comment number 6 below to let me know you're here. It would mean so much to me to hear from you. If you haven't subscribed yet, I highly recommend you do so and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new video that can bring light and inspiration into your life. Your support helps us keep creating content that inspires, uplifts, and informs. Final thoughts. As we wrap up this conversation, I invite you to take a moment and reflect on everything we've talked about today. The idea of not needing friends after 70 is not about being isolated or cut off from the world. It's about embracing your freedom. It's about releasing unnecessary burdens, choosing peace over the pressure to fit in, and finally stepping into the life you've always wanted to live. If you've taken anything from this video, I hope it's the realization that stepping away from relationships that no longer serve you can bring you more joy, more time for yourself, and more fulfillment than you ever thought possible. What stood out to you the most? Which part of this message spoke to your heart? Maybe you've already begun the process of letting go of relationships that felt more like obligations than real connections. Maybe you've started to notice how much more you enjoy your own company when you simply allow yourself to be. Or maybe, just maybe, this video gave you a new perspective, a new permission to prioritize yourself and your well-being. And that's a gift worth embracing. As we come to the end of this video, I want to take a moment to reflect on everything we've discussed. We've explored the idea that letting go of relationships that no longer serve you can lead to a more fulfilling, peaceful life. We've touched on the freedom that comes with embracing solitude and focusing on what truly brings you joy. I hope these insights have resonated with you and perhaps even sparked a shift in your perspective. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What's one thing you've learned from today's video that you plan to bring into your life? Is it the courage to let go of old friendships that no longer align with your happiness? Or perhaps the realization that true peace comes from within? Whatever it is, I encourage you to share it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comment, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to share it with someone who might benefit from this message. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss out on more inspiring and thought-provoking content.